Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the November 15th meeting of the Facilities Committee. I call this meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would like to add 2 items to it: update on the roof assessment, and I would like to permanently add to open session the next meeting date, just so we can calendar it. It's always going to be the 3rd Wednesday of the month, except next month, because that's a holiday week. So we're going to talk about that. So I need a motion to approve an amended agenda. Does anyone else have any changes to the agenda? Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the first thing is the roundabout presentation. Mr. Burnett. We can come back to it if we want to wait for him to get here. I have no problem with that. You do? Okay. That's up to you. Okay, let's go. Sorry.
Oh, how about that? That's better. Okay. So in general, I have a presentation about roundabouts in North Carolina. Typically, there are 3 types of circular intersections. And the first one was the traffic circle. And traffic circles were first introduced in 1905 at Columbus Circle in New York City. They became popular and many were built in the first half of the 20th century, especially in the New England and Mid-Atlantic states. By the 1950s and 60s, they fell out of favor due to poor operational characteristics. The size of the circles allowed for high speeds and inconsistent traffic controls, especially traffic in the circle that often yielded to entry vehicles, frequently resulted in the traffic circle locking up with traffic. Other geometric design issues affect safety and capacity. Many states have removed older traffic circles and replaced them with traffic signals and additional laneage for turning vehicles. And I believe we only have 1 or 2 traffic circles remaining in our state. The second would be traffic calming intersection devices. Like this one and ones popping up in neighborhoods across the state and nation. The small size and absence of splitter islands characterize this group. Since their main purpose is traffic calming, there's a question as to whether or not they're allowed on North Carolina state roads. We typically call these the mini roundabout. I'm not overly certain if there is one on a state road, but we are looking at options of putting them in. And we actually have one funded in Union County on Newtown Road. And the third one is the modern roundabout. Roundabouts are newer versions of the older traffic circles. They have certain geometric operation characteristics that increase safety and capacity, such as the size is much smaller. Entering traffic always yields to the circulating roadway. Speeds are kept low between 15 and 25 miles per hour, both by signing and by the geometrical design of the roundabout. With lower speeds, traffic needs smaller gaps to enter the circle. Smoother entering increases capacity, reduces stops, which reduces air emissions. Roundabouts always have a physical splitter island to direct traffic around the center island. Once in the circulating roadway, you have no interruptions. You do not have to yield to entering traffic, and there's no conflict with pedestrians, bus stops, or parking maneuvers. Typically, for your traffic circle, you would look at about 800-foot diameter. But for a roundabout, we generally shoot for 130 to 180 feet. This roundabout seen here is in Kingston, New York. It was originally a traffic circle that they're converting into a roundabout, and you can see how much smaller the footprint and the impacts are to the intersection. For entry deflection, with many older traffic circles, traffic enters the roundabout straight on and must do a 90-degree turn in order to continue. Vehicles making this move must do so very slowly because of the sharp angle. With modern roundabouts, vehicles are deflected by splitter islands in the median and enter the roundabout at a less severe angle, around 45 to 60 degrees. While the deflection before the roundabout slows vehicles to around 15 to 20 miles per hour, the angled entry allows vehicles to maintain the speed, making roundabouts more efficient than the old traffic circle. With traffic circles, because of the design, many require vehicles to stop before entering. This slows down entering vehicles even more, making the circles that more inefficient. By using yield signs, roundabouts allow drivers to keep moving if the roundabout is clear, and they can better judge gaps and adjust speed to enter without needing to stop. So why roundabouts? Here are the top 5 reasons. Safest intersection, they're high capacity to low delay, good for all modes of traffic, geometric flexibility, and their aesthetics. Typically, the question is, how do roundabouts reduce crashes? Mainly by reducing speeds in the intersection and by reducing conflict points. A conflict point is where 2 different vehicular paths enter, merge, or split, or cross. There are 32 non-pedestrian conflict points at a conventional intersection and only 8 at a roundabout. So that relieves 24 conflicts. So your likelihood of an accident reduces greatly. So here are some statistics following the installation of roundabouts. As this data shows, roundabouts significantly reduce crashes compared to stop-controlled and signalized intersections. The North Carolina study reviewed crashes at 30 roundabouts before and after. We also saw a higher percentage of crash reduction at rural roundabouts similar to the national study. So you can see in North Carolina, we have almost a 50% reduction in total crashes and a 76% reduction in fatal or injury type crashes. And I believe that's typically our goal. For many locations, a roundabout will handle peak hour traffic as efficient or even more efficiently than a signal, and much more efficient than an always stop. In off-peak periods with low traffic volumes on a main road, a roundabout will be more efficient since if there's no other traffic present, a driver entering from the side street can proceed without delay. At a signal, that driver would need to wait about 10 to 15 seconds for the signal to clear and then give the green signal to the side street. Roundabouts are not just for intersections with relatively low traffic. A single lane roundabout can process over 20,000 vehicles per day, while a multi-lane roundabout can handle nearly 40,000. The FHWA endorses roundabouts and has produced 2 design guides for use by state. Here's the summary of operations, both for intersections as well as providing access to businesses in the intersection area. For operational performance, when operating within their capacity, roundabouts typically have lower overall delay than signalized and always stop controlled intersections. The delay reduction is often most significant during non-peak traffic periods. These performance benefits can often result in reduced lane requirements between intersections. When used at the terminals of freeway interchanges, roundabouts can often reduce lane requirements for bridges over or under the freeway, thus substantially reducing construction costs. However, as yield-controlled intersections, roundabouts do not provide priority to specific users such as trains, transit, or emergency vehicles. And in terms of access management, because roundabouts can facilitate U-turns, they can be a key element of a comprehensive access management strategy to reduce or eliminate left turn movements at driveways between major intersections. And typically, when we look at access management, we look at your left turns out more so, and then your left turns in, and how that affects the overall flow of traffic. And with the roundabout, you can make a right out and go down the roundabout, make a U-turn, and go back the other way if you need to. Roundabouts also provide safer and quicker crossings for pedestrians. Although in theory, traffic never stops at a roundabout, The reality is that yielding by vehicles is much more frequent, making a roundabout safer than even a traffic signal with a pedestrian walk, don't walk indication. About pedestrians travel on the outside of the circulating roadway and crosses each leg about a car length away from the circulating roadway. This allows for a safe location where vehicles are traveling slowly, either slowing down to enter the roundabout or still traveling slow while exiting. By now allowing pedestrians to cross the center island, we maintain the free flow movement of vehicles in the roundabout. If there is a crash between a motor vehicle and a pedestrian, the severity of the collision is much less due to the slower speed of the vehicle. At this roundabout in Montpelier, Vermont, which is about 300 feet from the school, there are about 600 children, 800 pedestrians, and 13,000 vehicles per day. There are only 4 reportable crashes in 10 years, and injury accidents down 69% from before the roundabout was installed. North Carolina has over 30 roundabouts next to or near schools with no problems. Roundabouts are designed with all vehicles in mind, and buses have no problems in negotiating a roundabout. As you can see from this roundabout on the North Carolina State campus, if space is available for a bus pullout, a location past the roundabout is preferred. If there's no room for a pullout, a bus stop just before entering the circulating roadway is better, so that traffic in the roundabout doesn't get blocked by the bus. That would be the right slide. Roundabouts provide flexibility in roadway design. For freeway interchanges, roundabouts can provide advantages over traditional intersections, signalized or not. With roundabouts at both ramp intersections, no turn lanes are typically needed, reducing the width of the bridge over or under the freeway. For rural interchanges, the installation of roundabouts at ramp intersections can help prevent drivers entering the freeway going in the wrong direction. Roundabouts are designed to physically discourage these movements. I don't know if many people have been out to see where the Monroe bypass and some of the construction, but quite a few of those interchanges, we have dual roundabouts on both sides. And you wouldn't believe the ease of getting off the freeway and entering where there's a roundabout or some other form of type of intersection. This interchange is on I-45 in Charlotte, shows the flexibility of roundabouts. Instead of one crossroad with a large intersection, Charlotte built 3 crossroads, splitting traffic volumes among those roads. The use of roundabouts reduced bridge width and provided good traffic operations. There are actually 2 more roundabouts to the right that are not shown. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever been through this interchange, but that's a lot. That's a lot of roundabouts. So roundabouts don't actually have to be round to function well. In some areas, oval or oblong-shaped roundabouts can provide more efficient and safe operation than signals or stop signs. In Florida, 2 closely spaced intersections are combined into one roundabout without needing to realign one of the side roads to intersect across from the other side street, preserving buildings and homes. Depending on the distance between the side streets, 2 closely spaced roundabouts can serve the same purpose. So I'm not aware of any roundabouts like this that are local, even have any that are maintained by the state. Roundabouts can provide opportunities for extensive landscaping. Because of the lower speeds, the clear zone, which provides drivers the space to recover from mistakes, can be reduced, allowing for structures such as this wall at the roundabout in Durham. In fact, a vertical element such as this landscaping or other simple structures helps motorists to see that there's something up ahead. However, noting should be constructed in the center island that would attract pedestrian activity, as pedestrians should keep to the outside pedestrian walkways. Any landscaping or structure should be designed to be seen from afar. And as far as from the department goes, we have certain planning guidelines of what we'll allow within a roundabout. So as far as putting a structure of any great size, we typically wouldn't allow that. Here you can see landscaping that features local plants and provides a local identity. If anybody's been to Ocean Isle recently, this is the main intersection when you come off the bridge before you go down to the houses. In other locations, they allowed other landscaping, and this one's in Bloomington, Indiana. Apparently, they're big basketball fans there. And this UFO landing strip is in the Netherlands and can bring attention to an area and provide relief from the normal travel visions of asphalt concrete and traffic signals. I would not really see one of these in Union County anytime soon. You never know, though, across the state. In the almost 20 years of installing roundabouts in North Carolina, we have heard many concerns and worries about roundabouts, most of which are misinformation, which is why, of course, we developed this presentation to provide accurate information about roundabouts. These items are probably the most frequently heard from the public. When a roundabout is recommended for an intersection, there typically is some public resistance. Some of the complaints and questions we frequently hear and deal with are driver expectation, large trucks, emergency vehicle access, cost and maintenance. Older drivers will get confused and crash. And in my experience, there's always going to be some growing pains with a new intersection, but with a roundabout, it's not what you would think. I mean, everybody's slowed down, and there's no excessive speed, so everybody's able to merge in and move on easily. You're going to have the rare occasion where somebody probably doesn't know what they're doing, but if they go into a roundabout and have an accident, it's going to be far less severe than it would be if they ran a stop sign or a signal somewhere else. And here we have a wonderful picture. With older traffic circles, the rules of the road were not always consistent, sometimes allowing the circulating traffic the right of way and sometimes the entering traffic. With roundabouts, the rules are consistent, with entering traffic always yielding to the traffic already within the roundabout. An additional complaint is that motorists don't know how to drive a roundabout and are confused. A roundabout is much simpler to drive through than any other intersection, since a driver in essence only needs to look to their left when entering to select a gap in traffic to enter the roundabout, and then have a clear uninterrupted path to their exit. Although, of course, drivers should always look out for other motorists and pedestrians. Even if a driver does something unnecessary, such as stopping before entering, the traffic flow recovers quickly. There are numerous roundabouts in tourist areas and have worked out very well. One of the earliest examples of this was in Vail, Colorado, with many ski resorts. Roundabouts there reduce traffic jams off of I-70 from hours to seconds, and queues no longer backed up onto the freeway. A roundabout is designed to accommodate large vehicles that require greater turning radii as they travel through the circular portion of the roundabout. A portion of the center island, appropriately called a truck apron, is usually paved to accommodate the rear wheels of the vehicle. One of our challenges is getting truckers to actually use the truck apron. And I know in our division, when we started building roundabouts, we poured typical grade concrete, and truckers were trying to avoid hitting them, but we put them there to be mounted. Color that concrete and make it black to give them the appearance like they should be mounted. Roundabouts also accommodate emergency vehicles. Motorists at roundabouts are expected to observe the same laws and courtesies as they do on other roadway facilities. When an emergency vehicle approaches the roundabout, drivers are expected to pull over to provide sufficient room for the emergency vehicle to pass. If there is not enough room for this to occur, the driver is expected to take the steps necessary to clear the way for the emergency vehicle. This may involve proceeding through the roundabout and then pulling over to the side or yielding priority to the entering emergency vehicle. The cost of construction for a roundabout is about $1.2 million, not including any additional right-of-way. While this is more than a typical signal installation, which is about $250,000, maintenance costs are much lower and with no significant costs beyond typical pavement maintenance and mowing. In the long term, roundabouts are often less expensive than signals, and a turn lane construction is necessary. A roundabout often will be cheaper to build than a traditional intersection, both in retrofits or in new construction. When you also factor in the monetary and societal costs of injuries and fatalities, long-term roundabouts save significantly over signalized intersections. And that 1.2 million is generally the cost. The actual construction costs can be $750,000 depending on the existing landscape. Right of way is usually, depending on the area, $150,000. If it's urbanized, obviously it's going to cost us more. But if it's rural, we can usually get in there fairly inexpensively. And we try to shift them where the impacts aren't nearly as much as they would if we just popped it right down the middle of the intersection. A common concern heard from the public is that roundabouts are confusing, especially to older drivers, and that there will be more problems and crashes. The AARP has come out in support of roundabouts and have pointed out that the concerns are unfounded. Roundabouts are simpler to drive for all drivers, both young drivers just starting out as well as older drivers. Here's a map of North Carolina roundabouts as of November 2017. It includes almost 300 locations. It doesn't quite stretch yet from Murphy to Manio. However, it does go from Hayesville to Kitty Hawk. And we were actually considering to put a couple of roundabouts in the Murphy area. This is a picture of NCDOT's first modern roundabout. The roundabout is located in Clemens on Fraternity Church Road off of US 158 in front of Clemens Middle School. It was installed by Division 9 in 1999 and paid for by the school. Union County's first roundabout was at Gold Mine Road and Wesley Chapel South Road. I remember I helped build that when I was in the construction office, and we were all skeptical too. And to be honest, I'm a strong believer of them. Here's a roundabout on the North Carolina State Campus in Raleigh. Constructed in 2003, in addition to motor vehicles, it was used by a large number of pedestrians because of its location at a major research university. It is one of the most studied roundabouts in the country. This roundabout at the Moore County Airport near Southern Pines replaced a traffic signal that had to be modified because the signal poles were located in the airport's glide path. The lane in the lower right of the picture is a bypass lane. Traffic turning right towards the community college does not enter the roundabout and merges safely downstream. The installation of a bypass lane greatly increases capacity while not reducing the safety benefits gained from a roundabout installation. This roundabout in the old Salem area of Winston-Salem was the first multi-lane roundabout built in North Carolina. It cleaned up a confusing set of merging roads at this location. We built our first multi-lane roundabout at 84 in Weddington, at Weddington Road, and it was a learning experience for us. We built that for future volumes, and we learned that if we built it for future volumes, when we had the lower volumes, it doesn't work so well. So we actually went back in there and changed the striping and made it a single lane roundabout, and it operates much more efficiently now. So one day when we start to reach capacity, that 20,000 vehicles will come in there and restripe it again back to the original form, giving it the efficiency it needs to move that capacity. Multiple roundabouts can be built on a corridor, providing safe, efficient traffic operation. These two multi-lane roundabouts in Davidson are an example of that. Here's a few trends that we see in North Carolina with roundabouts. While most of our roundabouts are still single lane, more multi-lane roundabouts are being proposed and designed. We're considering roundabouts to control traffic in their downtowns and to enhance the area. Roundabouts provide excellent safety and operational benefits at interchanges and help reduce construction costs. Roundabouts are being installed across the state. North Carolina is among the top states in the United States for roundabouts. Others include Washington, Colorado, Wisconsin, New York, Maryland, and California. Oh, that's the end right there. I'm free to answer any questions or any comments on roundabouts.
I think that this whole discussion began about roundabouts because there's projected that you're going to put a roundabout in front of a school, an elementary school in Union County. So you talked about a couple schools in North Carolina that have roundabouts in front of them. Is that becoming more normal, or we have some concerns about it being right in front of the school, I guess?
They're growing, and they're still sort of new to Union County. We have a few, but we've got a lot coming.
We have a few in front of elementary schools.
No, I mean, we don't have any in front of
Okay.
the elementary school that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But when you go in there and you have a certain restricted space to improve an intersection, you have your options. You have signalization and always stop or a roundabout. The safest of the three is the roundabout every time.
Does the roundabout have to be in front of the school? Could it not be? away from the school and not at the front entrance to cause confusion with car lines and bus, the bus lot and parents trying to get in and out. I know there's a daycare across the street. So my biggest concern is the location. Why does it have to be directly in front of the elementary school?
So I'm assuming we're all talking about Sardis.
Yes, correct.
Elementary.
That's why we're here.
Okay, yeah.
Sardis.
And with that one, yeah. It's on that flash drive.
And
yeah.
Mr. Ainsworth, while you're pulling that up, when that was originally shown to us, it looked like there was room. It looked like there was room behind the daycare to bring that road directly into the road by the school instead of the angle. I mean, I'm a huge believer of roundabouts. It looked like to me there was an option where we could bring it in. Y'all been getting away from bringing roads into intersection roads at angles. Like, for instance, Corinth Church Road coming into Martin Luther, you brought it in at a 90. And it looked like to me the land was available without having to do away with any structures to bring the road into the behind the daycare instead of in front of it.
So one thing in the presentation that they noted was that there are 30 roundabouts near schools in North Carolina. One of the things that I had thought about after our discussion about this particular roundabout is that we do have the entry leg into the roundabout that's from the school. And I certainly would encourage the state and the town to continue with that design. However, if we find that we don't want to use it or we think that it's problematic, we can simply cone it off like we often cone off, areas. Correct. At the bottom, which is our parking lot down at the bottom. And so at worst case, so it doesn't undo anything that the state or the town are planning to do. For us, we probably, once we get used to the to the roundabout, we'll probably make use of it. As we had talked about previously, there's a thought that maybe cars would use it and buses would use it. That's something where, to me, I'm not sold that we would want buses coming back into that car lot. Yes. Correct. And to the right would be the bus parking lot, and I think it's Oakwood Drive. So yes, my expectation would be that as we learn how to use this traffic circle, probably our buses would use Oakwood Drive and access the road there. The cars would use the traffic circle entrance to enter there. But again, if we experience a problem with it, we could cone it off and have the cars continue to Oakwood Drive.
And will that give us access during construction of the roundabout? I mean, the concern is during the ability to get in and out of the school from both directions, right? During the construction.
Yeah, so the construction phase and the timing of the project are significant issues with the school system. Todd, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the plan of the town to get this construction done within the off season of the school. So you wouldn't have school going on besides minimum staff, whatever y'all do during the summertime per se. You'll have localized traffic being able to get in there to access the school. But right now, I mean, it's not a done deal. Right now, we're going to close that intersection and detour traffic.
I guess that's a big concern, because I know that's your plan, but the plans don't always work out that way. In Wesley Chapel, we had a roundabout put in. It was supposed to be done by when school started, and it wasn't. And that created traffic like you couldn't believe, because that road was closed. So I guess it's just a concern about the ability to access the school for parents and buses and everything.
Well, I mean, I believe that, say it doesn't get 100% done. I mean, you say you're at 80% or 90%. I mean, by the time you get the significant work out of the way, which is the utility conflicts, especially on this intersection with all the utilities. Once we get that done and start doing the actual roadway work and stuff, to me, you probably can open it up and still get work done. If we even had to move to doing it say you had 4 weeks left on the job. You say, well, we got to do the rest at night. Well, that's an option. I mean, I think there's flexibility in that aspect. You're right. There's no guarantee it gets done, because it is a more or less, it's a complicated intersection. So I understand your concerns.
I would like to understand how you chose the front entrance of the school as opposed to, the ends of the school. It seems like there should be other design opportunities to not put it center, in front of the school. So can you speak towards the criteria and why a roundabout is needed in front of that elementary school? And did I understand you to say that there are 30 elementary schools in North Carolina with a traffic circle directly in front of the elementary school? Because I did not see anything in the slide that showed an elementary school with one right in front of the elementary.
I mean, I can go back through the presentation.
Um,
and see if
Yeah, because I know you mentioned a middle school, and I think earlier in the presentation you did mention an elementary school, but I didn't see one like Sardis where there's one right in front of the school where parents are trying to come and go and buses are trying to come and go. So can you speak towards the criteria, how you chose the location of this in front of the school? Were there other options to locate the roundabout? And why did you come back to directly in front of the school?
And on top of that, if you could put up a aerial map that we saw before, you will see what we're talking about, and it'll make it a lot easier to discuss.
Well, generally with these types of intersections, you're restricted. I mean, I think the northeast of that is a subdivision. And then
When you see the aerial, you'll see what we're talking about. There is available empty land.
I don't have an aerial available.
Are you talking about going towards Oakwood Lane?
Back towards 74,
Back towards 74.
right behind the daycare.
And for me, it was the other direction going towards the church or back towards that angled intersection. Why could it not be further down from the school near that angled intersection, away from our front entrance?
Have they seen the new access point?
Yeah, so they saw the 25% drawings. And so what that showed was the roundabout at the current intersection. And I'm sure you chose that location because that is where the current intersection is. And you're probably minimizing your right-of-way acquisition, cost and not getting into any businesses or residential.
Which one?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a stacking issue, which is another reason why now you see the new plans. When people are coming to pick their kids up and you go to come get on Sardis, they go in this access point here. The traffic counts and stuff basically said that we needed to extend this left lane taper into the school. That's why we proposed to take this and move it right in front of the daycare entrance. You've got actually extra stacking here, and you'll have additional stacking along your drive. You basically get a new drive.
which affects their playground. So will the DOT be responsible for relocating their playground and making it a safe place for children to?
Well, no, I mean, we proposed put a fence around it, but I mean,
It doesn't
skew it to where it's not getting in this playground area.
A fence is not sufficient. It would need to be something that could stop traffic if it went off the road. And if you would point to the Rainbow Child Care Center word over to the left, right there is where we had thought about that patch of woods through there. That would put the roundabout back from in front of the school. And it just seemed like a better location of it.
Todd,
Yes.
one of the questions was on this map, can you show where the roundabout is?
On this one,
Right.
which one am I got?
He's got it right there.
Where here?
It's going to be at the intersection right now.
I mean,
Just a little, yeah, just a.
right. It's just
comes
a
down.
little bit skewed to the southwest or whatever. Right now, so we're cutting off this corner of this daycare a little bit.
But our question, or my question is, why can we not put it on the other side of the daycare center, the road coming in there?
Well, I mean, I think
Well-
these discussions were asked by the school system. From my knowledge, I wasn't part of this project 2 years ago, but when we first started studying this intersection, they basically said, look, we just want the intersection improved. That was from David's predecessor. I mean, that was the thing. Everybody just wants the intersection improved.
So the school system didn't give any input 2 years ago as to, I mean, other than,
I don't have any knowledge of that. And I don't know if it went to a board or anything 2 years ago, but I'm just saying, they didn't care if it was a roundabout or just an improved intersection. They just wanted something improved. They knew it was
And
a bad
um,
situation.
it sounds like we're all new to this conversation, but I have served on facilities for 3 years and I've never heard of, it's never come before us in the past 2 years
Right.
to, that there was a school request to improve that intersection.
Okay.
And
I just
we,
want to comment one section for a second. I know y'all mentioned it coming down through here. If we were to realign the road to come down through here, there are two things that stick out in my mind. Is the feasibility of doing it and the distance to your driveway. There's no way we can get enough stacking in for the traffic to get into that driveway without shutting down.
But we would still have two other ways into the school. And while it's under construction, people that's coming in on Sardis Church Road could go on up 74 and come in on Unionville Indian Trail Road and come around the backside. We're putting it where you're at, it's going to shut the school down.
I don't believe it'll shut the school down because the way we have it set up, or they have it set up, is that it's an entrance only from the school. It's the school's option to not use it. I mean, if you don't want to use it, we're not building it to allow traffic into the school from the roundabout. Only to exit the school in peak times.
okay, with all this being said and done, and you've talked about opportunities by the playground and we could do this and we could do that. Who would be financially responsible for putting up those barriers? And would you be giving us funds to re-landscape and redo the playground and put up safety barriers for the school? Who's going to pay for that?
It's our intention. I mean, once we put the 65% plans together and showed that new access, I was going to be a part of the project. So we was going to, I mean, you would have no financial responsibility whatsoever.
So if we wanted, if you choose to do this, and I think we obviously have some resistance and a lot of concern for our elementary school. So if you choose to do this in front of our school, you're going to give us funds to reroute car traffic and redo the playground so that parents feel safe having their children play at school. And if we need concrete barriers or new landscaping or whatever, that will be taken care of for us. We don't have to find the money to do that.
Well, I'm not really sure why you would have to redo your playground and everything. We'd have to have a meeting or something to discuss what's your concerns with just a stacking access point into your school. It's like it's a high traffic volume. People are going 35 miles an hour through there type situation. I mean, it's just a drive to get into your school.
So if it's not a high traffic volume, why do we need a roundabout?
I'm talking about into your school, not the road itself. Can you pull those plans, sir? Can you put those plans up again so I can show her that what we're talking about?
Hey, I would like to add something else too. It's been DOT's history in the past when they put a new road through an area. If the subdivision's there, they put up sound barriers. You know, we see them on 485. You can about tell which are the old and which are the new subdivisions, because when they went with 485, when they went behind an existing subdivision, they put up the concrete panels to block the noise. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, when we do our interstate projects, we go out and do a noise study.
Yeah, and then,
Determine
but
if
then
it's
you'll see
warranted.
another subdivision that was built after the interstate road was there.
Mhm.
And there's no noise panels because they chose to build near it. So a chain link fence will provide no safety from cars. And that's why I would think it would be necessary, and not really a dirt berm either, because the dirt berm, all it does is launch a vehicle if it comes through there too fast.
Well, like I said, I mean, this access, if you look at the plans, all right, there's your playground area. That's the access. I mean, that access can be pulled in a little bit, a little straighter to get a little bit further away from the playground. I mean, things can be done. And then if we had, for whatever reason you had concerns, we could put guardrail up here along this road as well, or some other type of barrier that you're comfortable with. I mean, things can be discussed and I think can be worked out as far as that goes from the back. But that's why we had to move. You see your old entrance? See, we've moved it that far back because you've got to stack that left lane to get in there when you're during your peak hours.
So, Mr. Ray, that, it appears as though what they're also showing on that entry drive is curb and gutter, which is another item to help with that. That traffic is going to be going at a very slow speed. And it is our parents, that's coming through here. But as Todd mentioned, anything that we need to do in between that road and the playground, it's, fencing or guardrail or curb and gutter, will go a long way as well.
Well, my bottom line concern, and I've only been on the board a year, but we have seen so many things that we were not a part of, but we ended up having to pay to fix them because they're on our property. And I think going back to Miss Merrill's question, we want the school to stay safe for the children playing. It's a challenge for the lower elementary teachers to keep their kids on that playground.
I think based upon what we're saying, it would be great if we could set up a meeting with Indian Trail and talk through some of our issues there. That would be great. We would appreciate that.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
And again, if this is happened at 30 other schools within North Carolina, I would like to see how that's the end result, the end product. Because I didn't.
Or one, just go
Yeah,
look at it.
I honestly, I know you spoke to it in your presentation, but I did not see an actual elementary school. I think the NC State representation was understandable, but I did not see an elementary or a middle school to see how that works with a public school.
And also, if you look at the plans, I mean, that's why this thing is skewed this way is so anybody coming down Union Building Trail Road, a parent or whoever wants to just, well, I don't want to stack up here. I want to go through here. Well, this is to help prevent her to try to take a right turn into there. Obviously, anybody can do it what they want to do. You skip a curb or anything else, but that's the reason for that.
Well, how is a person coming down Union Trail Road going to get into the school?
take a right at the first access, and you take a
Do
right
what?
at the second access.
Yeah, you go back down, you stack in that left turn lane.
Okay.
It's hard to see
If
on
you're
the
coming,
plans.
if you're going eastbound, you're just going to turn right in there. Or if you want to go down to the far access, you'll just go through
Yeah.
the roundabout. and
Yeah,
take
you're
that right
you're
down
going,
there.
you know, I should have put this turn.
And another thing about the completion date,
When is the completion date?
Well, right now, we're getting into, close into right-of-way acquisition. So, and then we want to basically let the project around April, May. Like I said, there's a lot of utilities to deal with, and we're kind of sorting that out right now. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, and don't hold me to this, but it's not out of the realm of possibility to do this in 2 off seasons. Where if the
in
utility,
what?
the utility complex is too much as far as timing, and we feel like we can't get it done in the off season, then we may come in there and just do utilities, get those out of the way, get them adjusted, and then come back the next falling season and do that. I don't know if that'll work with the state as far as our fundings and stuff, because we have to go through, it's a CRTPO project. Is it a small, the small project still? I'm not sure which one. Anyway, there are guidelines we have to go by with the state, so I don't know if they would even entertain the idea of splitting it like that in a 2 off season phase, but anything can be worked out right now. It's still early in the process.
who will actually be letting the contract?
The town, we'll be the administrators, and then we would seek, reimbursement through the state.
When the contract is let, can firm finish dates with harsh penalties not be put on it? Because in the bottom line, money still motivates contractors. If there was a deadline on the one over at Wesley Chapel that created havoc, it would have not happened. It would have been finished.
Well, we have our typical liquidate damages for contract time, and depending on the size or value of the project, they can extend $1,000 on up. I mean, generally it's $1,500 a day, depending on what the project is. And then we also have lane restriction requirements. If you violate those times for lane closures, they're often $500 an hour. So yeah, we have a system in place for these types. It's just how much that is, I wouldn't know.
But, we won't be involved in that, but it affects us directly. So I think what Ms. Heintel said, we need to schedule a meeting.
Understandable completely.
That would be great. Dave can reach out and schedule a meeting. That would be great. Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate you both being here. Next item on the agenda is the Sun Valley High School design change.
Okay, and today we have architects with Little Diversified. And so we have Shana and we have Tom, who I think I think y'all are familiar with both. We're going to talk about some floor plan changes, and talk about some mechanical options that we're investigating, and just trying to close the loop on those. So, Tom.
think one of the reasons too, to move it over here that got brought up in the PAT meetings was the congestion at that particular area of the school and putting an addition on into that congestion mix.
Right, yeah, so I think I'm gonna ask Shana now to kind of walk through those issues and why this plan becomes so strong, to alleviate, why it becomes a stronger plan for the operation, circulation, and movement in school.
I have a question.
Okay,
How much are these design changes? And I like the new design better. How much is that going to cost us?
well, the design, yeah, it is costing more, because
I'm talking about y'all's part of it.
we haven't finalized any of that yet because we don't know exactly what we're doing.
Right.
We're trying to determine what the scope is. So once we do that, then we'll look at a revised plan.
But
But
a lot of the work that we've done up to date, we won't be losing. Like all of the items here in blue and gray, a lot of the renovation work, like renovating the existing dining for the choral and the theater, all of that is staying. We haven't lost any of that information. Reworking the area where the existing administration is, that type of thing in the media center. A lot of that, a lot of the renovated work is still going to work for this kind of new concept.
and I'm only speaking for myself, but my concern is, why were we not looking at this design to start with instead of what?
Well, we did take a look at it, as I mentioned. We did look at it to begin with. In my opening comments, there was a concept of moving the dining into that location as well. And as I said, we moved away from that because it caused other issues that added cost to the project. So what we're proposing here is a more expensive solution. And that's why we moved away from that originally, because it was beyond the budget amount for the project.
And some
Do
of
you
the
have
other items
actual
that have,
costs, or you just surmise that it would cost more?
There are estimates
Yeah.
on the project, yeah, as I mentioned. So one of the things it does is it causes displacement of the weight room. That wasn't part of the program to build a new weight room.
So the weight room has drove us up to this point.
Not
No.
just the weight room. That's just an example of things that drive the cost. This is also,
student enrollment plays a big part
Right.
of this as well.
yeah, there's also a larger, this becomes a larger building footprint as well. One of those. We're also making improvements on the circulation spine, the existing spine,
Here.
from the former front entrance through by the media center and to this addition, because we're now trying to improve, kind of talking about the traffic of cars earlier. Now we're talking about the traffic of people and moving people. So we're making improvements as well. So there's a series of things that where this strategy does cost additional money to execute.
But there are lots of benefits, like what Tom was saying earlier about the circulation. Now this school has been added on throughout the years. And as you come through, it's really hard to orient yourself on where to go. So this concept is creating this boulevard where all of the classroom pieces then come off of that boulevard, connecting you from one end here all the way through the main entry, kind of the community type piece, and then further to the new stadium athletic component piece. The new bus lot that we have here allows students to come into this central location where all of the driving students are also coming into the same location. It creates one area where students are coming and going. It's safer for students. It's easier for the administration to monitor students coming and going. On an equity standpoint, it's creating this kind of main entry student area that all the other high schools have, with lots of volume and daylight, adjacent to the dining facility, which can also be used for community events, versus the other option, which had it kind of lower here down on the end. But really creating that community entry piece, student area space around the College Resource Center, and then stitching it together through this corridor that really becomes the thoroughfare. And again, on an administrative standpoint, makes it easier to monitor students coming and going, the renovation work that we're doing at the media center, again, starts to populate that space, and really creating this kind of whole high school versus a high school that's been added on bits and pieces throughout the year. It's trying to really stitch all of these pieces together. We're still doing the renovation work on the auditorium. Like I'd mentioned, the existing dining area will still move all of the arts components, theater and choir, adjacent to the theater. There are improvements in the band, all of the ADA requirements, updates on the restrooms throughout the school. And then we're creating this, what was the old media center will be turned back into this more collaborative type of space with kind of the 21st century type of learning with technology and furniture that was being done in the media center will now be kind of pulled out where multiple classes can come in and use that space. Like Tom mentioned, the weight room, once the new stadium is built and the old stadium goes away for the bus lot, a new weight room will be, addition will be built where all the other athletic components are, again, trying to bring all of those areas together and make it more cohesive so that multiple people can use the weight room versus up here at the front where it was. So it just kind of makes all of these pieces fit a little bit better.
I agree with everything you said. My question, I go back to my question, why this wasn't the first option, since we're going to have to pay for the change.
Well, again, there's a budget for the project, and we were designing to a budget. And when we explored that concept, what we said was that we have, one, there's displacement of modular classrooms. So how do you build that there and then displace? Because there's added cost, right? Where do you move them to accommodate? Strategy right now is to try and work that within the existing building. Just remove them, have a painful year while this is going on, but accommodate those classes.
So what's the estimate now for the total project?
Right now, the estimate with all the things, including Dave mentioned as well, another thing we're looking at is mechanical replacement in the older classroom wings, because we got all that stuff in the corridors with these really depressingly low ceilings. So there's a proposal to remove all that and put in a different system there.
And that's
All
the
that,
items in
roughly
gray.
around 25 million.
Total?
Yeah, for construction, yes.
Construction. Total budget was about 24.4.
For the total project, well, what we were told for construction and what we were trying to design to was a 20 million.
Right. I believe we're about 4 million over
I think
total.
4 to 5 million again. And, you know, we did, based on the earlier schematic design, we did an internal estimate. We had a cost estimate to look at. We had 3 estimates, but we had a pretty good beat on all the various things that were going. And at that point, we're still a little bit over, we're about a little over 21 million. So we had some work to do. But this is now pushing it probably in that 24 to 25 million.
Did y'all design any of the new schools in Cabarrus County?
I did not, sir.
Well, that's where I taught last, and they all had this concept, and I had sort of forgot it until Dave showed me his plan, and I thought, this is brilliant. And I'm assuming that Dave is the new set of eyes you were referring to earlier.
Yeah, I think Dave came in and looked at it. But once again, I want to reiterate, this was a concept that was discussed in our PAP charrettes. And we moved away from that because we were looking at added costs. And so we pushed that aside. So it was discussed. It wasn't that it never came up. And as a group, as a PAP, school leadership, et cetera, we ended up going in the direction of project that's what you're talking. Now, you know, we do have a set of fresh eyes, and Dave brought this up again. It's just something, and he didn't know what happened at the PAP. So we got together, and for the last month and a half now, we've been boy, this isn't this time when I remember.
And I would want to mention, as Tom mentioned, that there are some components in there that that we may or may not want to pursue. You know, certainly depends on cost and availability of funding. The weight room, you know, and relocating the weight room. There is an option to that, you know, but we would want to see how we are and see what the committees, you know, feeling is on the weight room. There's also, as Tom mentioned, the mechanical, the side. So if you look at that very front corridor, all the utilities that are very low hanging, in
I
that.
would urge you to go look at Sun Valley High School. There's areas of it that are, the piping and everything is exposed, and I'm 5'2". You can pretty much
Yeah.
touch it as you walk through the hallways. And that's only some of them. I'm not saying it's in the whole school, and that's where that came from, is the idea that they're low and maybe there's something we can do about it.
And that we're guessing right now might be in the $400,000 to $500,000 to do all that.
And another question about the HVAC. Have we moved away from package units?
Well, that's one of the concepts we're exploring as part of this.
Because I'm a big proponent of
Yeah.
package units, because I've taught in schools with centralized units, and when it breaks, it's bad everywhere.
Well, again, there are so many different options, and in our conversations about this, we haven't landed on anything yet. But we've discussed that as an option. We've also discussed still using the central plant, still doing hydronic piping. So we've met at the site with the engineers, with the UCPS staff, and to discuss what the possibilities are.
Well, wouldn't package units clear up all those hallway pipings?
Yes, it would.
Yes.
You could also do with hydronic piping.
I have a design question, just so it's hard to see. So the next to the administrative suite on the left, how many classrooms is that?
That's 4 classes right now.
4
The-
classrooms. And then the old administrative suite would add how many?
3 classrooms.
So 7 total versus the 10 we originally talked about.
Yes and no, because remember, we're renovating the existing dining, and so you're getting 2 additional classroom spaces up there, the choir and the theater. Dining.
But we had
previously.
more classrooms before in the addition that was down here.
Yes, we did.
So it's less overall.
Well, it is. Yes, we had kind of extra classes in the plan before.
So if I
We
followed
had,
you
we had a net of
correctly-
12, I
We
believe,
have a
on the.
net of 12, then there's a net of 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9. Okay.
Could you explain the bus flow, how they come in and exit?
Yeah, so there will be a new entrance there, and I believe it is about where the entrance to
The dump
the
is.
dump location. So that'll be a new
And
drive coming into there.
It'll come in and come back around.
Right.
Then they exit going up?
No.
Yes, the buses, that is put in there so that they can release buses to go up to, I think it's Rogers Road. And that was part of the conversations with the traffic impact.
So they'll come in the same point, I guess, and there'll be angular parking and they'll just drive out and take a, okay.
Yeah, and the sites, all of the football stadium, the practice fields, all of that remains the same as to what you've already seen. Nothing in that realm changes. It's close.
Okay, any other questions?
I'll just make one comment, since we spoke about it so much. I just want to commend everyone for doing their due diligence. We looked at this in the beginning. We backed off because of the budget. But if we're going to do the right thing by this community and this school, I'm happy to see us come back with fresh set of eyes and have this new boulevard, as you said, to connect and unify the old sections to the new sections. So I really like this design, and I just commend everyone for looking at all the options, taking the budget into consideration, and then coming back to this again. So good job.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, Dave, that you took another look at it, because I was always concerned about the flow of that corridor, and you and I talked about that when you started, so I like this design. Thank you.
Thank you. And in addition to the presentation and the proposed changes, we were also looking at an additional change of how to, the delivery method on this project. So we are looking at proposing what's called a CM at risk, construction management at risk. So that's the delivery method. That's different from the traditional design, bid, build method. CM at risk is I've got experience with it on both the private sector and the public sector. Mark also has experience with it. We both, I think, are on the same page with typically we don't recommend using it for most of the type of projects that we have. In my mind, nice, clean projects, I would not recommend CM at risk. This is a different type of project. It's got renovation phases. It's got new construction. We've got things that are going to be happening at parts of the campus at sometimes, and then it's going to be shifting around, and it's a more complicated project. We also have a schedule issue where, when we give them the go, to design what we just talked about, from finishing that design, completing that design, and then bidding the project, awarding the project, we're going to actually lose a portion of the summer, which we don't want to do. And there are things that we want to do in the summer to prepare the school to better handle the construction that's going to happen. We do want to renovate and repurpose some spaces in there so that they can be more teaching centers, because we want to have those mobile units go away from the campus. We don't want to spend the money to relocate those mobile units, set those mobile units up, and then use them. We'll save a lot of money if we can just have those mobiles go away. So the CM at risk approach actually is going to afford that opportunity to, have the CM contractor, construction management contractor, bid things out of, we'll call it out of sequence. They'll be able to do an earlier bid package. That's one of the benefits of going that way. So just quickly, CM at risk is construction management. If you are familiar with how that's done often in South Carolina, that is construction management. There isn't any risk. Here it's kind of like, it's called at risk because they are the contractor. They are the general contractor. We would do a qualifications-based selection of the contractor as opposed to just doing the low bid contractor. We would, that by itself affords some benefits to it. I'm sure you've seen that. In addition to that, what else?
I would jump in on what Dave is saying. We both have some experience with this. And although with a clean sheet project, I'm certainly not a fan of it. This is exactly type of project that CM at risk shines on. It allows us that flexibility to do some early bid packages in preparation for the stadium construction being ready for the fall of 19. It allows us to do some out of sequence things, which we wouldn't typically be able to do with the traditional design, bid, build. So this is an ideal project for this type of work. We both know many firms that are capable of doing this and would encourage them to participate in it. And I believe the county also used the same process with their new, is it DSS building. So again, this is a perfect opportunity for us to go that route.
I also would like to reinforce that too, David. These will still, the CM, competitively bids a sub package. That's still public process. So that still works that way. But as Dave said, you look at all the blue, varying shades of blue in that existing building. If we can't have, to have that third partner in this process is really critical to the success, because they're going to be able to help sequence this work and help. How do we schedule? How do we swing? How do we get this area ready so we can move people into it and then go on to the next? It's a very complicated project. Certainly agree if this was a brand new greenfield elementary school, hard bid it. But with this, you need a contractor that can help with the phasing, the sequencing. It's just a lot of complications.
I would add that, you would bring, we would do an RFQ, and we would bring that partner, that CM at risk contractor on board earlier, actually as soon as we could. Then they could actually provide design assistance where we look at the details, we look at the sequencing. They're in there with us, trying to, figure out the best way to do it. the end goal is for this to be as smooth a project as possible, because we aren't moving away from this campus and we're going to come back. Construction's going to be happening during, the instructional time. So how do we best manage that, and how do we best approach that? So they're much more of a team member. And again, as Tom mentioned, the CM will bid portions, they will bid packages. They will package the work together and they will bid that out. And they still have to follow the same rules that we do.
I really like the idea of managing this complicated project this way, because, we do have 6 other bond projects that our staff will be focusing on, along with our current, capital improvement plans that we have each year. And I think it's a great idea for something of Sun Valley's magnitude, potentially a $25 million project, to have someone streamline this and sequence it and do it right for us. In a contract like that, would there be any accountability for them to reach certain dates? And, what happens when they don't meet target dates for completion?
So we would still craft the contract and we would still do liquidated damages, things like that. As we work through the schedule and we work through the sequencing, where we see critical dates, critical milestones, we can actually put liquidated damages on those phases as we go through to help make sure that the contractor reaches those.
And would they, I know we're focusing a lot today on the structure. Will they also be managing the athletic fields in the stadium? It's all together. Okay.
Actually had, yesterday, we were discussing that with the civil engineers about scheduling and timing of getting, we had an internal discussion with our civil engineers about the scheduling and timing of the site package and permitting of that. So I think that could be a possibility, and that'll be a big advantage for them to be able to take that out and get it going. And so we're working towards that.
With the CM too, there's no overruns. It's a hard cap, isn't it?
So the way you structure a CM at risk project in North Carolina, you would have a guaranteed maximum price. Now, if that doesn't mean the change orders go away, but it does mean the change orders should be greatly reduced. Because they're going to be a partner in the design effort and looking at those details and things like that. However, if the owner decides that we want to add something else to the project, well, of course, they shouldn't be responsible and liable for that. So in that sense, if the owner does above and beyond changes, we would still have to pay for that. And that would be above that. But what you do is you negotiate a guaranteed maximum price.
Okay.
I have one question for the little firm. I have seen cost overruns and change orders in the past, and a lot of times it only became obvious when stuff went up and you said, this is not, and I've never been able to wrap my mind around the fact of why did the architect not catch this to start with?
Well, this is an analogy I've used for years. I hope this is a good answer for you. I think about car manufacturers. So at Ford Motor Company, they design a car, they take it out and they test it, they run it around the track, they drive it across the country, whatever they do. They find out where the problems are, they rework the design, they test it again, they get it, should be perfect, go to the market. And yet they still have recalls. I think in designing and constructing a building, opportunity to test it once or design it once, and then you have one test, and that's as it goes. So you don't have the opportunity to vet out every single problem. So it's not a perfect science, but we work very hard to keep any changes down. I have had projects where we have given money back. It's a rare occasion, but it's happened. A project like this, with all the renovation work, there's going to be some things that you just can't anticipate.
But is that not what we pay you for? To be our eyes on the...
Yes, you do. Yeah, we are your advocate. Even with the CM coming on board, or whether it was a design bid build, by contract, we're your advocates. And so, if the contractor comes up and says, we have a change here, we're obligated to review that as your advocate, as the owner's advocate, within the context of the contract, and determining the fair resolution for any of those types of conflicts.
And I'll give you a case in point. When we passed a $21 million bond to convert the Career Center to CATA,
Mhm.
there was 6 classrooms that didn't have suspended ceilings in them
Mhm.
per the architect and engineering. And when the contractor turned them over, the principal said, "Where's the ceilings and the lights?" And they said it wasn't on the plans, and Union County Public Schools had to pay for that.
Well, I think we'll have our ceilings in our classrooms. I don't know that you said ceilings first and then you added lights. It could have been the design idea. So I don't know that condition.
You're a designer though, right?
Right. On that project, maybe the intent was to not have ceilings. I'm assuming there were lights as part of the design idea. I don't know. And maybe the principal said, well, I'd rather have ceilings. So I don't know what those conditions are, but
My
yeah, I
only
mean, we should
point
be
is
having-
once you see it happen once, you realize it can happen.
Well, I would also add to that, but so there's going to be a design intent, and as an owner, we review those drawings and we try to understand those drawings and be on that same page. Yeah, in that particular example, it could have been that the owner said we don't need ceilings, and then somebody else came in after it's constructed and said we'd like to have ceilings. That's an over and above, so it's like, well,
That
let's go
particular
through the
case, there
addition.
were classrooms with seats in them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, that would be a value added change, where it wasn't in the design, and it's something more, and that so that the contractor would be saying, I'm going to try to build what's there, what we think everybody wants, and that's that. So another part of that is renovation phase. We really don't do much destructive testing at all. We would do asbestos testing and things like that, but there are going to be assumptions that are made. What is behind that wall? Is the structural system as the 1960 something drawings showed, and hopefully we even have the 1960 something drawings.
Well, we have some, but we don't have complete sets of all these buildings, and we can't see every condition. And so there's going to be things that are going to happen.
Yeah, so that's another good example of, the information isn't there. We aren't doing destructive testing. We aren't, because we're living in this building, we're using this building. We can't take out the wall and see what's there. So those are the type of issues that still can come up.
Well, thank you very much.
you.
We appreciate the update. Thanks. If the committee's okay with it, can we take a short break? Maybe 5 minutes and then go back to it? We don't have a lot left, but is that okay? Okay. Okay, we're back. Energy conservation and behavior management, RFQ, Mr. Burnett.
This is just an update to let you know that we have put together the RFQ for that service. We have we're advertising that, and it is on our website. And this on the screen is from the website. So there isn't any action that's required. We do hope to receive the responses near the end of the month. I think it's the 29th. Yes, due date November 29th. And that
Is it posted with AGC?
no.
Why not?
Well, we advertised in the newspaper, and we advertised on our website. I wouldn't expect this type of vendor to be looking through the AGC. This is more of it's an energy management type of service. So they would be looking at the newspaper. The firms that have contacted us about it, we have contacted them to let them know that this is.
I just knew it used to be AGC's practice to go out and sell memberships to everybody, and they'd say, we will submit to you possible jobs. And so it doesn't cost anything to make them aware of it.
Or we can make them aware of it.
The next item is surplus equipment.
So we have a list that's attached to this on facilities. We've got 3 items, and we have 5 driver's ed vehicles, and we've looked at the service records on those, and really, if you have any questions, we can be happy to try to answer them.
We bought
Dave, can you clarify, how many new vehicles have we purchased for this year's budget? And
We have
this is
purchased 5.
5, and that was in our, you can confirm that was in our CIP to purchase 5?
I don't think it was on our CIP.
I think the CIP was the
Maintenance?
facility.
Facilities?
There you are.
Three.
That was 3 of them.
Those 3 vehicles in the CIP
Uh-huh.
for facilities.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Right.
5
Is in their budget.
in
Okay.
their budget for driver's ed.
Driver's ed budget? Okay.
And driver's ed is self-sustaining too, Ms. Merrill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the proceeds from these vehicles would go back to driver's ed. So the proceeds from the sale of these 5 driver's ed vehicles would go back to the driver's ed budget.
Okay. The next is construction update.
Won't go down all of these, but just the highlights. Benton Heights Elementary School, the thingy parking lot has been constructed and is being utilized. The Forest Hills High School auto classroom, the exterior of that building is just about complete. And that project is going to be actually completing this month. New Salem Elementary Schools sanitary sewer. That project is, we will be doing some final testing in the next couple of weeks. That has a January 5th contract completion date, but we don't see any issues with that. I think we're going to be about a month ahead of that, ahead of schedule on that. And then with the bond projects, we've got the upcoming facilities, the upcoming joint Board of Education and Board of County Commissioners meeting. And I think that just about covers that.
Any questions? Okay. Next item is building zoning permit information. That's just an FYI. Unless anyone has a question. Okay. The next item is an update on the roof assessment that we added to the agenda.
Yes, so that effort has begun. Terracon is the consultant. We met with Terracon couple weeks ago, and They had already looked at a couple of our routes. They were at some of the Sun Valley schools. And they were getting an idea of how long it was going to take them to do it, what kind of input they needed, from our staff and from the school staff. We've worked out a schedule. So what they're doing is they're providing basically a look ahead schedule of 1 to 2 weeks of we're going to be at these schools, and they're making those arrangements and coordinating with the schools about that. So that effort is underway. Again, this project is going out to February timeframe, I believe. So we're in the beginning of it, but it is underway.
Great. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is the next meeting. Typically, our meetings are on the third Wednesday of every month. Next month being the holidays, I would suggest that our next meeting be on the 13th of December. Anyone know if they? I will send an email around to make sure that that's okay. The next item is closed session. So I need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-131 for the consideration of bids.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?